Alright, in this video we're going to talk about how we graph inequalities on a number line. For instance, an inequality like x is greater than 4 or x is less than or equal to -2. How do we draw the graph of that? And realize that when we draw the graph of an inequality on a number line, what we're doing is we're coloring in all the possible values of the variable that make that inequality true. And if you think about graphing inequalities with this underlying thought in mind, it makes a lot of sense how we actually approach this. So it says here at the top that there's two things that we need to do to determine to make the graph. The first thing that we need to do, we need to decide, should the circle be open or solid? And the way we decide that is very simple. All we do is we look at the signs. If the signs contain an equal to portion, for instance, if we look at a greater than or equal to or a less than or equal to, then there's a solid circle. Whereas if we have a less than or a greater than sign, then we have an open circle. Why does this happen? Well, when we have the equal portion added to our inequality, that means that the point at the boundary of that region is also a solution. And so we shade it in and make the solid circle, just like we shade in the other values that make the inequality true. The second thing that we need to consider is which direction should we shade. Are we shading numbers that are to the left of the circle, which means that those numbers are smaller than that value, or are we shading to the right of that value, which means that we're looking for numbers that are larger than that value? And if you look down here at the bottom, here are the ideas of when we shade to the left and when we shade to the right. Whenever we have x is smaller than a number, x is smaller than a number, or the number is bigger than x, the number is bigger than x. Those are all indications that we're looking for numbers, for values that are smaller than the number on the number line, and so in all of those situations we're going to shade to the left. And shading to the right is just the opposite. We're looking for all the numbers where x is bigger than the number in the inequality. And so all of these are instances where we've written some expression that says that x is bigger than the number. All right, let's look at a few problems and check this out. All right, lots of inequalities and lots of number lines. Example number 1, x is greater than 5. So the first thing I consider is, should it be an open circle or a solid circle? Since this inequality does not have an equal to portion to it, it's going to be an open circle. So I want an open circle at 5. And then I'm looking for values of x. This says x is greater than 5, so I'm looking for values of x that are bigger than that. And the values are bigger than that over to the right-hand side. And there's the graph of x is greater than 5. Number 2, x is less than or equal to -2. This inequality sign has an equal portion to it, so we're going to put a solid circle at the value. So we have a solid circle at -2. And then we need to determine which direction we should shade. We're looking for values where x is less than that, so the x values are smaller, which means over to the left. And so we're going to shade this portion of the number line over here. There's the graph of x is less than or equal to -2. X is less than 0. No equals portion means an open circle. We're looking for values where x is smaller, x is less than 0, smaller than 0, so we're going to shade over to the left. X is greater than or equal to 4. Solid circle because the sign has an equals portion to it at 4. And we're looking for values of x that are bigger than that. The values are bigger over to the right. All right. Next one says -4 is bigger than x. -4 is greater than x. So we have an open circle since there's no equal portion to the inequality sign. And if you think about it, what this inequality means, if we flip the script here, it says -4 is greater than x, which means the same thing as x is smaller than -4. And whenever we switch the sides of what are in an inequality, we flip that inequality sign. And so this is the same as x is less than -4, and so we want the numbers that are less than -4, so the numbers over to the left, and I shade that right there. 3 is less than or equal to x. It's the same as x is greater than or equal to 3. Solid circle at 3, since there's an equal sign, and we want the numbers that are bigger, so we shade up to the right. Number 7, -2 is less than x, same thing as x is greater than -2. Open circle at -2. And we want the numbers that are bigger, so we're going to shade over to the right. And the last one, -5 is greater than or equal to x. That's the same as x is less than or equal to -5. Solid circle at -5. And then we want the numbers that are smaller than that, so the numbers to the left. And we'll shade that way. Hopefully this is a skill that you weren't too terrible with before, but if you were, hopefully a few examples here on the open and solid circle and the direction of shading may have helped you. All right, see you next time when we talk about solving inequalities in one variable.